We were getting sales from Steam and they were killing it. And just looking at all those PlayStation players going, thinking like, there's gonna be nobody left on PlayStation. We're literally doing the math of like, how many people have a PlayStation and how many have this game already? Because there's nobody else left to buy it anymore.
Breathing underwater, can't let you go now.
I started in October 2006, about 10 years ago. I was brought in with a round of interns, and the very first project was what became Supersonic.
Acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars.
I still regret that to this day.
They had just greenlighted the game after much negotiation, and we're like, we want to change everything.
Frostbite for Onslaught was the first map that I actually made. I was putting jumps and things all over the place. Like, I love to ski, and that was a snowy map, so I'm like, I just want to put, little ski jumps everywhere, little kickers.
We feel like a lot of it, the success boils down to right time, right place, and luck. A lot of times interviews will lead towards like, how are you guys such geniuses? And it's like, well, we just iterated on this thing until it was good and then got really lucky.
All right, everybody, welcome to week 18 of That's the Thing. I'm your host, Lawler, and with me, as always, Johnny Boy and Quinn the Landboy Lobdell. We talk about stuff that's imperative in the community, whether it be drama or whatever's going on. This week, we are going to be talking about how no clip was really loud in my ear just there. But this week, we're talking about a couple things that happened this past weekend on the RLCS, how us as commentators, we like cats, and I'll explain that when we get to that. Oh My Dog and the Precision Z reset. Kind of a reiteration of Revival and Energy. And then we are also talking about the three-way tie between Northern Gaming, Flipside, Tactics, and Mockit. At the end, we always talk about then community rising stars, people in the community who have made cool stuff, kind of give back to you guys, because at the end of the day, that is the thing. If you guys do have questions, concerns, all that kind of stuff, make sure you save it till the end of the show, as we will do a live Q&A. So for those that don't know what that video was, that was the Rocket League documentary trailer that was announced by Danny O'Dwyer. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. There's a bunch of letters. But he basically left GameSpot to do Rocket League documentaries, and his first one that he's taking on is Rocket League. There will be two parts. Part one comes out on Monday, which is like the actual making of the game and how it came to be. And then part two will be on Tuesday as they talk about how it kind of came to be, the marketing aspect, and how they expanded, which is pretty cool. So make sure you guys check those out and give those guys a lot of love. I'm sure it'll be all over Reddit and everywhere else. Second thing to talk about is we have RLXL this weekend. Johnny, if you want to kind of tell these guys about what RLXL is, the charity event, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've been a little bit out of the loop with the RLXL organizational side, but it's just looking into the fringes of it. It's super organized, and there's going to be a lot of people and a lot of tournaments and a lot of casters and a lot going on, but all you need to know is that this Saturday, tune in to twitch.tv, and if you like, I'll be streaming right before it. I'm sure a lot of other people will, just so we can host this channel. I'm sure that the #1 viewed channel in Rocket League, pretty much from 6 p.m. BST, that's 1 p.m. EST onwards, will be RLXL. It's a charity event, and they are it's a joint effort. I'll just read from this document real quick. It's a joint effort between Twitch and the Children's Miracle Network to raise money for CMN hospitals throughout North America, and that's the event is a partnership with that. All donations will be handled per region. There's a little mini tournament going on where we see who can donate the most between Europe and America, and I believe is Australia the third one. I think it is.
Yeah, it'll be Oceania.
4 hours to start off with Europe, then 4 hours of America, then 4 hours of Oceania, and whoever can donate the most will, that'll feel pretty good. It's just like a mini tournament. friendly competition between the regions. So you must donate during your region's broadcast time. So of course, everybody come and donate in the European broadcast time from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. BST, which is 1 p.m. till 5 p.m. EST. But with all of the regional rivalries aside, definitely check this out. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a ton of casters and community figures involved, a lot of pro players, and I'll be doing it while you're going to be doing it. I think, Quinn, are you involved at all?
They messaged me to get involved, so
yeah,
probably.
There's going to be a ton of people. It's going to be awesome. And that's the short of it. If you want to find out more, then just reach out to any of the admins on Twitter, because they're all tweeting it right now. Lots of posters and things about it.
Yeah, if you guys need any immediate questions, Alstedo in chat, ALSTEDO, is one of the guys organizing it. Make sure you guys shoot him any message. Otherwise, go to their Twitter, Rocket League XL. Makes it really easy. Yep, Discord, everything. But Alstedo will be there. Makes it really easy. Be a really cool event for a good cause. So make sure you guys check that out. But on to topic number 1, commentators like cats. So for those that are unaware, last weekend during the RLCS, the last game of the day, Oh My Dog versus Precision Z had to play. And there was a controversy where there was 2 teams involved, obviously. And during the 4th match, I'm pretty sure, I actually have a video of it, there was an issue to where they had to reset the match because there was a disconnect, and then players started going up on Twitter, and like there was a big hubbub about it, and it wasn't pretty. Hold on, let me get that video for everybody. I think this will be it. Yeah, it is. There we go. So I can show you guys the play, what happened, and then we will go from there. Good enough. All right, here we go.
I wonder if there was a "Oh My Dog" counter in the chat. What would it be at right now? What? Free goal? All right.
I mean, that's some crazy team mind games going on.
Yeah, right? That was some next level tactic, guys. You witnessed it here first in the RLCS. Next level meta, but it looks like we're going to continue on with this game as Oh My Dog still sits up 1 goal. 30 seconds in.
All right, so
that's the thing right there.
Goddamn.
Everybody, man. Look.
You guys make this impossible. So basically what ended up happening was during all that situation, everybody disconnected. Nothing was going well. And the only person who reacted to the kickoff was one player. And then there was a statement that was basically made, if I can find it for everybody. It was, quote, regarding the Oh My Dog vs. Precision Z match reset on Sunday, the 23rd of October, the broadcast talent indicated on stream that both teams called a reset, but that was not the case, and unfortunately the result of a miscommunication. At the time, 4:53, one of our admins noticed that 5 out of 6 players were frozen, and a player from Oh My Dog typed DC in the in-game chat. At that point, the admin made the call to reset the match. As per this rule, an admin has the authority to reset a server due to exceptional circumstances. Everybody in Twitch chat didn't know what happened, so they were all spamming commentators like cats because it forced a switch in momentum and then started causing Oh My Dog to lose the series. Even though they were up 2-1, Precision Z ended up clutching it out. So commentators like cats is how we got that topic. Now, the biggest thing that happened before the official statement was made is Oh My Dog went to Twitter. Johnny, if you kind of want to talk about that and why that stuff happened. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was actually just investigating if my microphone is working. If the microphone sounds a bit weird, I apologize. I'm not sure if it does, but yeah, you're right. The Twitter, as usual, the place where pro players are going to show us or to remind us just how professional they are. But we have to remember that this is right after Oh My Dog have been knocked out of contention for RLCS, so they're feeling pretty bad about it, and it didn't happen in a nice way where, they were 2-1 down in the series, and then they're winning 1-0 in game 4, which they then go on to get restarted and lose that game. So, feels bad, man, if you're one of them. But a lot, and I believe Turbop also went out and tweeted that the official announcement made by RLCS was not, in fact, accurate, where they had announced that both the teams had agreed to a restart. A lot and Turbo both tweeted out, we did not agree to a restart. That is not true. So they just wanted to get it out there that they felt that there was some injustice done on either the announcement or in how the situation was handled. We'll discuss both of those topics a little bit more, but I mean, initially, we just have to understand that the players did not ask for a restart. I think what actually happened is they said DC in the chat. That did happen. That's been confirmed. But as far as restart goes, that was the admin's call, which is fine. That's in the rules that they can do that. But yeah, I don't know why it was announced officially that both teams had agreed for a restart. The only thing I could think of is that they were trying to justify the decision and make it look like it was a good idea and thought the players will just play along. But I mean, the players aren't going to agree to that, or they're not going to just lie and say, yeah, we're all good with this restart, which hurt our chances of qualifying. They're still right after getting knocked out, so they're not going to be too happy about that.
No, and that's, I mean, that was kind of the problem. So being there, and I got the chance to actually see it all unfold, because we all, try to make sure that stuff runs as professionally as possible. There was, and as it states in the rules, the admins of the RLCS do have the ability to make an official change if deemed necessary. And we've seen issues that in the past that these guys are doing their best to make an attempt to give them the best tournament possible. And from everybody's perspective, and you heard it even in the video that I showed you guys, I was one of the guys commentating, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Because you only saw a lot go for it, nobody was moving. Like, it was clear something was an issue. Like, not everybody just stops. And it was everybody but one player. The problem is Axeltoss, the host of the show, who was the one that announced the statement, was trying to basically get the info put in his ear so he knew what to say, and it got kind of mixed up, and he said the wrong thing. Official statements obviously going on are now being given, handed, whatever. Okay, there's certain times that stuff goes, production issue. But the beauty of it is everybody saw it on Twitter. Probably wasn't handled the best way on Twitter. I think, Quinn, you can agree to that, the way these guys voiced their opinions. And then it kind of blew out of proportion to the extent that it was. But it got the attention that was needed, and we made an official statement, handled it as immediate as possible. So, obviously mistakes do happen. A lot of that was caused because of what was said, and people took it for word. But more importantly, do you guys think the reset was just? Let's start with Quinn.
I understand that when there's DCs, like, it's just weird. It's a weird situation to handle. I think personally the restart was fine, but I'm not quite sure about how I feel with regards to restarting at the same score or time, all that stuff. That stuff's not in the game. We talked about that last week. But it's a rough situation, especially when people are disconnecting and it's so difficult already to tell when there's problems and who's being affected by it. But I think that they should have definitely, something had to happen. Whenever there's like a whole team DCs, right, or there's problems, I don't think it's right to keep playing.
Right, Johnny, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think that restarting is fine. Like, I think we can all agree that there will be a time where restarting a game, because of some circumstance that cannot be controlled coming into play, that there's nothing wrong with that. That's going to happen. And yeah, restarting is okay, but I completely agree. Like, restarting at 0-0 makes no sense. Clearly one team had an advantage. Why don't we just pseudo restart the game by telling, like, the admin can just tell the players, okay, we restarted at around about 4 minutes and 35 left. Oh my dog, we're winning 1-0. And you guys rolled the ball into the Precision Z goal at 4 minutes and 35 into the game. The pro players are going to be like, okay, sure, because, why wouldn't they? And they're more than capable of doing that. So I don't know why we don't just do a pseudo restart and maybe even stream it. It would be pretty funny. I think it would be funny to see. So we're just going to, since we don't actually have this in the client, we're just going to watch the players waiting for the time to go by. I mean, it's only 25 seconds or whatever it was. It would be no big deal. And then obviously, like we discussed last week, there needs to be a feature in the game where you can actually restart the game at a specific moment, because or a specific time and a specific score, because it's happening too much now. All of these problems would not be problems if you could just start a game at, say, 3 minutes remaining, 2-0 in favor of a team A. Like, that would solve all the problems.
Right, and there's only so much, and being there, I got to talk to the admin, and he noticed, okay, we're 7, 8, 15 seconds in, whatever, and his theology behind it, because he has the right to make that decision, being the in-game admin, he saw, okay, it's been literally 10 seconds, and we're having a problem. So rather than it coming down to later in the game and having more problems, say 3.5 minutes in, and then having to reset then because of connection issues or whatever, why not just get on a whole new server, take out any complications, and then start from there? That extent, I agree wholeheartedly. As for the bigger picture, I agree. We mentioned this last week. I think there needs to be implications. If this stuff happens, you have to think of that what if scenario. Obviously, ideal world, servers are never going to have problems. Everybody can just play their game. It's fine. But in the situations they're not, I feel, and I think we all agree on that, to the point of that there should be a situation to where if I need to put a specific time on the clock, a score set, whatever it is, and then have like a countdown or a pause command, I think we should. Quinn, do you want to talk about why that's important? Why having those kind of options and what that does to a team's mentality, et cetera, matters?
Well, having those options takes, just at the core, it takes away all of the inconsistencies. I mean, if you have to restart, if there's problems, well, it's not fair to take away any advantage somebody might have earned fairly prior in the match. It's really frustrating when you may be playing well, you're doing very well, and if something like a server issue occurs, right, a lot of times that's out of everybody's hands, right? You just need to get another server. It happens. I think that it can really affect the mindset of any player. Like, it's happened to me as well, where you just really are so thrown off from something that may affect the game, whether it's a restart or whether it's just not being able to maintain the momentum that you had, even if you had it legitimately, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that just really can completely change how a player performs, especially with Rocket League. It's a 5-minute match. It's not very long. It's not like, okay, if you get tilted for 1 minute, that's 20% of the entire match, right? It's not like we're playing Counter-Strike where you have like, up to 30 rounds or something before you even consider something like OT. So I think that they really need to ASAP get some kind of control for players to not be affected so directly by any admin decisions, and also for the admins to be able to maintain control over matches.
And the one thing I would ask in the meantime is, why have we never seen, or why is there this reluctance? Like, I've done it on my stream where we've restarted a game and the score has been, say, 2-0, and then we just like make up a 2-0 game and wait for the time to go by. Like, you just score one goal, wait for the right amount of time to go by, roll in the second goal. Like, it's as close to a restart as you're going to get. You could do that off camera and have the casters kill time. No big deal. Like, I don't see the problem. Why hasn't that happened? Like, it's pretty easy to make that solution a reality, but some reluctance to do that on RLCS's end, I guess. It is a bit messy and unprofessional, I suppose, but I mean, it works. Why not consider it? Would have prevented all these problems. I'd like to see an official opinion on that from somebody in, in the RLCS admin team. But I mean, that's probably not going to happen.
I mean, we have seen, back to back to back. I mean, this is becoming more and more of a problem. And it's unfortunate that is a situation. So, I mean, things that Psyonix should do to improve it, obviously the ability to adjust. Servers seem to be more commonly, I think, than not. I don't know what it was with a couple patches ago to where now servers just randomly go down for maintenance pretty consistently. I don't know if that's like an actual server going down. I think it's just the generic response that they give anytime that the server crashes or whatever is going on. But server stability seems to be something that's being more of a problem as of late. I don't know if you guys are seeing that across your games as well, but I know I have in mine. So, I mean, do we need a dedicated, situation to where we have something that we can, kind of hone in on the problem, whether it be try to eliminate as many factors as possible. I mean, if we're going to have a, tournament that's $250,000 prize pool, obviously you want to make sure that it runs as smoothly with as little contradiction as possible. And we seem to be having that more and more. So on the player side, I mean, could have been handled obviously better, but I get the frustration. I mean, you're no longer, your top six. You're, trying to do your best to, give on a good show, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, you guys are up, momentum's your way, and now it's gone. So it's one of those things that obviously these teams need to be able to handle that, because server stuff does go wrong, but at the same time, I get their understanding. I get their frustration. So,
well, I just want to say, I mean, from a player's perspective, that kind of thing can really affect you, right? Like I see Turbo Postal talking about how they tried to make it fair by giving up possession or just not really, like just doing things they can in the match. I don't know why RLCS doesn't have dedicated servers. Like all Sonox has to do is get 2 servers, one in EU, one in US East, because that's all you play anyway, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So just 2 servers that you don't have like a metric fuck ton of other Rocket League games going on. It's so easy at that point to just, the server's never being overworked. The performance is probably going to improve. I mean, that's really just the only other option. It's not easy. All the people who say that there are server problems, it's not easy to fix that kind of thing.
No, and it's
But
not.
dude, what if
from a
somebody
development
steals?
perspective.
What if somebody steals the server? Then there's no more RLCS because they've stolen.
Well, then
the
all they have
RLCS
to do
My
is
server.
put it on
server. You
another.
made this. I made this.
Oh no! Somebody stole the server.
We can't get in.
They're
What do we
literally
do?
taking the pro server. What do we do?
Yeah,
We can't
no.
play our RLCS this weekend.
Yeah, and you also have to stress test those. I mean, the issue with only having so many matches on them every single week, server side, is you want to stress test it, make sure it's consistent. And that's tough to do when you only have a select amount, but I'm sure they can make it work. I mean, it's just obviously we're just spitballing ideas on things that we should possibly do. But I know the one thing that we all agree on is either a pause command. With how fast that game goes, I think just a pause ability where everybody has to agree to it on your team or something like that. Because it's tough. I mean, being a player and stuff, if something goes wrong, you don't have time to sit there and just alt tab and be like, yo, admin, I need this, etc. But with all the comms, I know Johnny and I talked about this, if you kind of want to mention it, maybe having an admin in the comms of those teams.
Well, we mentioned last time about just having the players, when you're playing your RLCS match, you have to do it in RLCS administrated or like supervised discords where you have somebody. It's equivalent to going to LAN and having somebody there to watch over your back. If you have a problem,
It's
you
really
say,
creepy
hey, look.
when it's online though, dude. It's
Well,
really
no,
weird. When
all they
it's
have to
like-
do, all they have to do is mute their mic, and I mean,
but still, the fact that they're there, you can't like.
well,
be
dude, what do you
comfortable.
want? Somebody? What?
I don't know, dude. I think that it would definitely like.
Okay, dude,
It
your
would affect-
insecurities are not as
No,
important.
I'm
as
not
making
thinking
sure-
about me. I'm thinking about the pro players that I know, and they would not feel 100% comfortable. Just like,
Right, well, I mean,
I
you
know
have
that
to
they
get
want
over
to
it
have
if
their
you
own like
want-
little private server. Like obviously, when you go to LAN, yeah, they accept that that's not going to be. They're not going to just be able to, chill in their living room and be on Discord with their buddies anymore because it's like the LAN. But
But at the same
I don't know
time,
if
I
you
mean,
need an admin
what
in
if you?
comms. It's just you don't need it to be in comms to be accessible, right?
But they
Like,
don't have to be.
hard.
Well, I mean, how are you going to be able to access them without like completely giving up your ability to play?
I don't know. Quick chat command. Like whenever somebody says savage, it's actually like, hey.
What, like need admin or something?
Yeah, it doesn't need admin quick check command, right?
I mean,
No.
like
think that-
I know in StarCraft 2, you just type PP in the chat because that's pause please.
Well, yeah, but in
Ironically, it sounds like they need
in
to take a
StarCraft
piss.
though, you can actually pause the game without the other person having anything to do with it. You can just straight pause it.
And then
Yeah.
they do like a countdown after 10 seconds, and then everybody kind of goes back into it. But I mean, the reason why we kind of mentioned, the Discord
Quick
aspect,
chat safe words.
yeah, is I mean, there's other ways to be like, if I've got an admin in chat, yeah, you're gonna be like maybe cautious. You're like, oh, this guy's gonna hear our comms. He's gonna, we're not gonna be able to talk the way that we want. But at the same time, like, aren't comms more so professional when you're in that kind of setting? Like, we're playing in the
Well-
RLCS where,
I don't know if that's a good thing for some teams though. Like,
yeah.
I know some teams that are actually so much better when they're just chilling and just having fun.
I mean,
When
I
they
think-
go hardcore like focusing.
I think it's
on
not
the
as
game.
big of a deal as you're making it. The only time I could see it being a problem is if you have an admin in there who's getting fucking nosy and like doing ethically questionable.
Do you know
thing,
this? Like,
right?
I know enough like just admin people who try to. I don't know. They try to
Well,
like
if you
be
wanna play
the big deal. They're like, hey, hello, pro players. I'm your admin for today. And it's just like, shut up.
Well, right, but I think in
Just leave them alone.
RLCS you could get past that. Like, I mean, look at Cloud. Do you think Cloud would ever do something like that? I don't think so.
Cloud also has
Yeah,
earned the
I mean,
trust
so
of all
yes,
those
'cause
players
that
too.
helps my argument, but no, I don't.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a situation that you can do it in the sense of, okay, I have an admin in here. I'd be like, I just type, like, I wouldn't even say anything. Just mute yourself immediately, and you're literally there. Be like, guys, I'm here in case anything goes wrong. If you have anything, just say something. I will be here to hear it. Simple as that.
Mhm.
Otherwise, play your games, do your thing.
I'd like to see it like tested. I
Yeah.
definitely want to see that tested and get the players' feedback. Because at the end of the day, like it's just like the player experience, trying to make it as fair as possible, and make them feel as supported and comfortable as possible.
Right.
So I'd like to hear from them. like what they would think about that.
Yeah, be cool to see it. Stress
Whenever I've
tested.
been a coach manager of a team, whenever I've been like helping teams, I don't like to like. I know it when I'm sitting in on comms, like it's not a serious game. I don't sit in on comms on a tournament game. I'll just do that for practice games, so I can hear how the comms are working. But for a tournament game, I think I'll just be like, okay, good luck, guys. I'm out because I'm not gonna like be a distraction. Just the presence of somebody else in the Discord is enough of a distraction for some people. It just like takes up brain cells to remember that they're there. It's not necessary.
Well, I don't think they should even be really saying anything at all unless you talk to them first.
I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't seem like the best solution to me. I think that
it can change the mental game.
Quick chat, an easy quick chat thing where you can just say like pause. Can we please pause? Like a quick chat command for pause. Problem solved. You just smash pause and the admin pauses the game. That's it. Or you wait until the next goal and then they pause it. Like whatever the rules are decided.
Okay, well well, I mean, make that like okay. So if say they do add a pause command, what kind of rule sets do you think we should suggest in order for that to work? Obviously, there needs to be a countdown timer for an unpause. After the pause is done, count down from 5 or whatever it is, so everybody's ready. Or people both have to do like a ready check to make sure that it's unpaused at the same time, so everybody can kind of get in their groove.
I think what I said, I was under the impression I think I said that I only like the idea of pausing when it was during a replay. I don't like the idea of pausing mid-play.
Right.
Despite, like, there are going to be goals that happen when somebody's lagging, but come on, controller issues happen. There are going to be things that go wrong. And, yeah, you might lose a goal in a freak internet blip, and you can't just, say, oh, I'm lagging, somebody pause the game and ruin somebody's off-the-wall air dribble. Like, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think that pausing during replays, I could see that being a thing. Pausing during play, no, I don't see that ever.
Quinn,
Making it into professional play.
Quinn, with you being that proponent to make sure that the integrity of the game isn't compromised, what other things with pauses, shouldn't there be certain times? Like I think replays are a good one too. Like after the replay before the kickoff.
There can never be a pause that interferes with the flow of the game. It's too important.
Okay, so how would you implement it so it doesn't? Personally, as a player, how would you?
Okay. If there were pauses in the game, the only two seriously viable solutions that I could see happening if there were pauses are if you call for a pause, right? It happens at the next stop and play, which would be a replay, right? Mm-hmm. Or if it happens at a time where there's like neither player, and it would have to be subjective, it would have to be at a time where neither player is in advantage. Meaning, like, let's say one team is leaving. I don't think it should necessarily announce it to the other team that they want to pause.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's for the admin, right? So what would happen is, let's say you go for an attack, right, and you commit all 3 members to the attack, and all 3 are trying to rotate backwards. Nobody's interfering, right? That happens. Mm-hmm. And you're just sitting there. You call for a pause, and you're sitting there with the ball in front of you. Neither team's at disadvantage. It's just a lull in the game, which would be a convenient time to restart.
Yeah. That could be admin's discretion, like you say. That could work. It wouldn't happen very frequently because I think in Rocket League it's kind of constant pressure, right, at the highest level. But there are
even at the highest level there are those lulls. And I think one thing they could also do is if they had an ability to kind of snapshot the game, like what's going on, and they could just press a button and be like, all right, everybody has this boost, everybody's in this position. Right? Mm-hmm. Being able to have that so they can review whatever needs to be, whatever the admin's called for, they could review that and then go back to that position in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I don't think at any point a pause should be a significant break in the game. I think sometimes it's gonna have to happen, right? That happens in every game. That's part of just being a good player and being able to maintain a high level of play. If you tilt often, it's fucking shitty, man, but that's who you are as a player. Like you struggle to deal with consistency. Well, I don't think that means that there should never be pauses or other people's issues can't be fixed.
I mean, somebody might sneeze and their thumb slips off the joystick, and that's going to change the game in a way that the team didn't want, but things happen,
Right.
Right. I think players have to be understanding.
They're not going to be in a perfect environment. They're never going to be in a perfect environment. And if you ever see a perfect environment for playing Rocket League, don't go in, because as soon as you go in, you've ruined the perfect environment because you might sneeze, right?
Because you're shit.
Yeah.
No.
So
Yeah,
you can't have perfection. You just have to, try and make it as good as possible.
Yeah. I mean, there's a difference
Try
between
on Twitter when it goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between making excuses and things being botched in a sense that could have been fixed. And that's all we're basically trying to hash out here, is trying to make it so we have ways that we can minimize as many non-factors as possible, things that we can actually control. Pausing, I think, does change the integrity of the game in the sense that momentum swings, all that kind of stuff. I mean, when you go into kickoffs and stuff, it's different. But at the same time, there is some people that may enjoy that feature, momentum swing one way, we're down 3-1, they just scored another goal, okay, there's a pause, we can kind of recollect and say, okay, we got a breather, guys, we need to focus on this, let's
Like
get it
last
going.
quarter basketball, how many timeouts are there in that last
Right. So with how
oh my god, 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah, so with how fast this game moves, that's something that also has to be thought about, is are people going to be able to use this as more of like a timeout rather than something else? Do we implement timeouts? And that's stuff that you would need to be careful to think about.
They do that in League, where if a team calls for a pause, the admins are standing right behind the players, and they're not allowed to talk during the pause. Neither team's allowed to talk when the game is paused. They're not allowed to discuss like the timers on things that are coming in the game, and their things are strategy about how to execute for the positions that they're in. They're not allowed to talk at all. So that could happen in Rocket League as well. Although,
So
Rocket League strategy, a lot of it's automatic, so it wouldn't be the strategy on the same level, but there would be elements of strategy where they could discuss like how much boost they've got and the positioning that they're in and what they want to do with the ball, where you wouldn't want to be able to use that like for a timeout, like you say. Just be, pause, fix the issue, back in the game. No discussion.
So that's huge. I mean, I'm glad that League has definitely recognized that. That's something that we could learn from too. And that's where because we're in a sense where a majority of the games are online. League is different. League of Legends, everything is LAN-based. They do series and they do seasons at a LAN environment. So it's a little bit different. And that's where that Discord admin per se may need to get involved. To be literally there to be like, okay, what's the issue? This is the issue. If any of you guys talk out of turn, if you guys discuss strategy, whatever it is, that's an issue. You guys are going to be punished if you do try to get around that. Because I'm sure there's ways that if people really wanted to, not to give ideas, but you could do like a virtual audio cable. You could talk in a different voice application. You could type to other people. I mean, there's things that we can't limit, and it goes by the honest system, which, if people are doing that and it's getting shady, like, no offense, man, but I don't think integrity-wise you deserve to be in the pro scene if you're going to be doing stuff like that. But at the same time, there will be someone who always tries to push those limits. So even though we introduce situations and solutions like this, it is very difficult to come up with the ideal, just like how Psyonix is trying to do with the next topic we're going to be talking about. On Reddit, we saw a lot of outrage regarding the flip side situation that we're going to be talking about next. Do you guys think that the reason why most people didn't blow the Oh My Dog situation out of proportion was because of that, or because of the way it was handled? We'll start with Johnny.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of truth to that. Like when one thing is dominating the Reddit and dominating Twitter, that makes everything else that is happening at that moment be less in the limelight. And that definitely happened to the Oh My Dog situation. And I think with the other thing to remember with the Oh My Dog situation is they were losing the series 2-1. So it's not like it's not as bad. I'm gonna say it's not as bad as the revival with Energy, who were winning against Energy, and then they had the weird restart, and then Energy came back to win. In this one, Oh My Dog still had a lot of work to do, and on the day, PZ did look like they were the better team. So I don't think people thought that the result was unjust. But yeah, I think we can all agree that it wasn't handled perfectly. It just wasn't handled anywhere near as badly as the flip side situation, which is why all of the attention went to the flip side and three-way tie situation that we're going to discuss later.
Quinn, it sounds like you agree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I honestly think the Oh My Dog situation was handled really well. They understood that there was a mistake made. Announcement was made immediately as soon as they could, as they got the official legal system behind it. And we're like, all right, we made a mistake during this. This is the actual call. This is what happened. Shut it down. And it happened. Plus, everybody was too busy focusing on the flip side topic. So there was that too. But to kind of move on from that, so for those that are unaware, we are going to move on to topic number 2. This is week 18 of That's the Thing. We just finished up with our first topic, Commentators Like Cats, about the Oh My Dog and Precision Z reset. We are moving now on to the three-way tie between Northern Gaming Flipside 3, or Flipside Tactics, or F3, and Mockit. We got the lucky aspect that Mr. CloudFuel got out of his meeting early, so he is going to be joining us. Let's see if I can get him on the line. Give me a sec, guys. Topic number 2, Northern Gaming Flipside, Mockit three-way tie. CloudFuel now is a guest joining us on the line. CloudFuel, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Can't complain.
Doing good, man.
Absolutely fantastic, Cloud.
Now that he's here, right? It's always good to have the number 1 fan on the line. Feels good. So you got to handle this situation and got a lot of flack for it, despite you just being the messenger, which is pretty rough. So from your perspective, do you want to talk about, because obviously you're probably the best to talk about it, summarize what happened with the rules before this second statement happened?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. Actually, this kind of starts about a week earlier. Myself, DM Rawlings, our statistician for the RLCS, and Gibbs, we're going over a bunch of scenarios for the upcoming week. Something we always do, just kind of a fun thing to talk about. All of us really enjoy analytics and stats. So talking about all the different potentials that could come up, and we saw several scenarios where there could be 3, 4, and even 5-way ties. And we thought it would be, good to kind of play out, okay, what are the potential scenarios? Gibbs was going to do a video on what those scenarios could be. And while doing that, we went over the rules, and it became pretty apparent that the rules could be interpreted multiple ways, depending on how you looked at it. Gibbs saw it one way, I saw it a different way. So that immediately led me to believe that there should be something to clarify those rules. So I reached out to the person who does our rules for the RLCS, gave him the scenarios that we were looking at. One of them did involve Flipside. One of them involved an NA team or several NA teams. So it wasn't just Flipside that we were looking at, but there wasn't a situation where Northern, Mockit, and Flipside could have all been tied, and that was one of the ones that we looked at. And given that situation and given the scenario, what he told to me was that the intention of the rule was to have it in such a way that head-to-head is by far the most important thing. With tiebreakers, the further down the list you go, the more arbitrary they become. So the goal is to try to use whatever you deem is the best way to break a tie. And with that being said, that the head-to-head tiebreaker was what we collectively had deemed to be the best. So with that in mind, you want to use that in as many scenarios as possible. You try to avoid having to go down the list unless you absolutely have to. So the intention was you break the three-way tie by taking one team who is the best of the three, the best of them all, if you will, based on the tied. Based off of the tie, you go to game win percentage. That was the first tiebreaker. So in that situation, I believe Northern Gaming had the best game win percentage off of that. Now, there were several scenarios that we ran, and I think every team had the ability to be in that spot based on how many wins they ended up getting. It just so happened to be that it worked out the way it did this past weekend. So with that rule, he went in and adjusted it on Friday before the matches even started to make it even more clear that that was what the intention was. So when this all went down, we already knew what was supposed to go down because of the fact that I had already spoken with the rule maker to clarify everything. So for me, it was really simple. It was like, okay, well, I already know what the intention is supposed to be. I know what the rule is supposed to be. So I'm seeing it the way that was described to me. I didn't even really see it any other possible way because that's what it was told to me as. So I immediately put the teams in that order based on what was told to me with the intent of those rules.
Which makes sense when it's that clear and you're shown the intent from the start. It makes it very easy to make that decision. Which, I mean, that's why the rule exists. Why do you think? And I want everybody's opinion. Why do you think head-to-head is the rule maker's decision on the best possible outcome for these teams? Even though it's played through a series and consistency, why do you think head-to-head in his mentality is that? We'll start with Cloud.
I mean, I'll say this. The guy who makes the rules is Nintendo. He comes from a Smash background. I'm sure that he probably used a lot of his background from Smash in order to make these rules. Makes sense. I would also say that in addition to that, most leagues and most esports, most tournaments that I've ever been around, they use head-to-head. We do a lot of things similar to what you would see in pro sports, and a lot of them use head-to-head, especially when there's very few matches that have been played. It's hard to take 7 matches across a season and use anything other than head-to-head. I mean, if it was 14 matches or if it was 21 matches, then it makes a lot more sense. But I mean, we're talking about something. When you look at the NFL, right? They only have 16 games that they play in a season, and it pretty much comes down to head-to-head in just about every scenario. And we have less than half of those games, so it makes it really difficult to do anything other than head-to-head for one, and then for two, I mean, I think the theory is that if you beat a team that has the same record as you across the board, I mean, you've done everything that you can in that scenario to prove that you deserve the win. Now, that's not to say that that's the absolute best way to go about things. I just think that was the prevailing thought, that that's kind of the common standard. There's not really a good way to do game win percentage across 7 games. You know, it's not, again, not necessarily something that I was too terribly involved in, so I can't really speak from my perspective, but I can say that I think a lot of this comes down to that's just what the standard has kind of been.
Awesome. Good explanation. Now I know Johnny is itching to say something, so we're going to make him wait.
Who give me that impression?
Your face. Body language. And Quinn had the most calm body language, so we're going to let Quinn talk his theory on that too. I mean, as a player, I mean, you have the position to say, okay, you know, what makes you think a team is better than the other than, you know, okay, yeah, this team beat us. Does that make them better than us? Situations like that. So, Quinn, what's your take on it?
Right. Playstyle matchups are huge. Some teams you can outplay, but as a whole, maybe like more consistent. For instance, when I was on Genesis, we used to always have very tight series with Kings, who are now NRG, who were as a whole much more consistent, right? They had a lot better results than us. And I mean, just the fact that we were able to maintain close series, take wins off them, they take wins off us time and time again, goes to show that there's importance in head-to-head. So I understand Cloud's perspective, but with that being said, there's nothing more frustrating in this game than having a better overall performance in the league and losing out because of one series, which, if you removed from somebody's results, would still not change who was the better team over the entire season. I think RLCS needs to decide what we want to emphasize: consistency, right? Or perhaps, you know, being able to choose, okay, which series do we want to focus on, which teams do we really think we have a chance at beating, that if they have a bad season, if they have a bad performance throughout the league, maybe we can win through head-to-head. I mean, that would really not be nearly as difficult as it sounds. And I just think that, like, it kind of is counterintuitive. It's rewarding teams for one-day results as opposed to a whole season of results.
Do you feel that people's definition of consistency may differ?
Yeah, and I think so. But I think at my understanding of what I consider consistency is being able to maintain wins over teams you are ranked above, and do that time and time again, and not lose to teams which would be considered upsets.
Okay. And I assume you mean upsets based upon their performance through the season. You know, if there's a team that's 0-3 going against a team that's 3-0, the team that wins 0-3 is going to be the upset.
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, that has to do with the series throughout, even though it's a head-to-head match. So it's a mixture of both.
I mean, it's basically everybody knows which teams are better than others to an extent. Obviously, it gets blurry at times, but when a team has done When a team has won more games over an entire season, they should be rewarded for that. It shouldn't go against them just for one result, which you can never count for you don't know when the team's going to be into the head-to-head, basically, right? So it's pretty stupid that one day of results could potentially knock out a whole season of performance.
Am I allowed to counter on that?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Just because I know Johnny wants to talk.
Three things. Sorry, Johnny. And I love you, Quinn. And this is me speaking as me, not necessarily the RLCS entity. So this is just my personal beliefs. Doesn't necessarily reflect the RLCS. So with what you're saying, Quinn, and yes, I know 59 does not equal 61. With what you're saying, Quinn, I think what I would say against that is that there's a couple things. One, with 7 games or 7 matches, 7 series, whatever you want to call it, that are played throughout a season, it's really hard to define consistency. That's a maximum of 35 games that could actually be played.
Right.
It's tough to really be consistent across that, especially when you're not doing series, right? Because we changed from last season where we had the series. It was always a set of 5 games that guaranteed you 35 games. So for stats and for the games themselves, we were able to guarantee that across the board. But this is when we moved to best ofs. So you could have a scenario where you 3-0 everybody and you don't get to those final games. You only get 21 games. So I think consistency is difficult with 7 matches that are played. I also think that if you have 2 teams at the end of the day that are tied together and one team wins because they had the head-to-head over them, well, that means that they won that match whereas the other team didn't. But then they lost a match to somebody where the other team won a match. So you could have a scenario where, like Flipside, for example, they lost to Oh My Dog. Oh My Dog ended up 7th in the standings. Theoretically, you could say that was an upset, right? So with that being said, does that mean Flipside doesn't belong up there because they lost to a 7th place team? I think, like you said, it comes down to the matchups, right? On this given Sunday, this team can win, or this particular match is going to be difficult for this team because they play a better style. They play a style that combats this team better. So I do agree with you on the consistency part. I would just say that it's difficult to do consistency over that few amount of games, and it's also that we're trying to build a compelling event for people to watch, right? You don't necessarily want to watch a match where people are not giving it their all. So by incentivizing every single game, you better win every single match or you're going to potentially not be in this thing. It forces you to play your A game. So I think those two things are the really compelling sides.
Lawler, can I please?
No, don't let him interrupt. Don't let him interrupt.
So
there's so many things that I
just
disagree with. Oh my goodness!
And that's why we're making you wait.
I didn't think it was a good idea for me or for you to come on my stream, Clyde. Because holy cow!
It's fine.
So okay, Quinn. Before we move over to Johnny Quinn, is there anything else that you would like to add on top of that?
The answer is no. Quinn.
I think that Johnny Boy, you're just gonna go into a quick monologue here, not so quick actually, but no, I think forcing teams to try and win every best of is important. I think perhaps with that being considered, right? Because obviously I don't know all the intentions behind all of your guys' rulings, right? I don't know exactly what you're trying to achieve, and I know that there's importance in making sure that every game is taken seriously, right? You don't want teams to say, hey, look, well, we've won 90% of games. Let's just go on vacation this last game, and we won't even show up, right? That would be a disaster.
Yep. Right.
But that's
wait.
Well, what's your point? What are we
Right, I'm trying to get to before you interrupted. I had to illustrate that. Okay.
I have no idea what we're talking about anymore.
Okay.
It's just like going so
with
far
that
off the
being
track.
considered, why not just have a head-to-head played again between those matches, or a round robin if it's a 3-way tie, and then you get your match. You get the important match. People take everything seriously, right? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I don't really know if there's a for sure answer.
It gets messy. I mean, I will tell you all this, and Johnny, I promise.
Johnny's next, guys. Don't worry.
Promise. All of these things all go back to Psyonix and Twitch. So it's not like, okay, it's never going to go anywhere. We're always reevaluating everything. That's coming from the Twitch perspective and the Psyonix perspective. We're both super invested in this game, in this community, and everything. So everything that's being collected here and on Reddit and everywhere, that's all gathered and that's all used to make the seasons better. Like, we're already preparing for the next one and then the next one. So keep that in mind. With that being said, Quinn, I like the idea of a playoff. For a playoff, like a wild card spot. That's something like the MLB has recently put in, and it's been really exciting, compelling. It's just it's messy to a degree. It adds another nuance, another layer, another thing to have to think about. And honestly, you could have teams that say, "Well, we already beat them in the season. Why do we have to beat them again?" So there's just different things you have to weigh. It's not black and white. It's extremely gray, and there's a lot of things that you have to consider with all that being said.
So interesting thoughts on that. And now that Johnny's had all the time in the world to think about what's going on here, hopefully with a calm and collected attitude, he can express his points. Go.
Oh, I mean, like, I don't even know like what we've been discussing here, but firstly, head to head between two teams, I can accept that. That's fine. If you only use head to head as a tiebreaker between two teams, I don't think that's the best way to do it in a league of 8 teams, but that's fine. Like, I can accept that. Secondly, I think that win percentage versus a whole league is totally an okay tiebreaker. I don't know what you really mean, Clyde, when you say that it's difficult to get. Sorry if I'm not catching your point, but the whole point about it's difficult to get consistency over 7 games. Well, I mean, you're going to get a better idea of consistency over 7 games than you are in 1 game between 2 teams, which tie breaks them because one team beat another team in head-to-head. So I don't really see that point or where it's coming from. But the main thing for me is actually that this rule, not the rule that was in the rule set that was released to the public. The rule set that was released to the public, if I read it, and I did this on my stream, and I think everybody with a brain agreed with me, that when I read those rules that was given to us in the rule set, which was released to the public, I read that and I see teams plural will be ranked by their win percentage. So we rank Northern Gaming, Flipside, and Mockit by their win percentage. Clear 1, 2, 3, no need for a head-to-head tiebreak. And that's why there was such confusion, because I see no need for a head-to-head tiebreak, but regardless, it's happening. And I'm like, wait, why? The rules clearly state that there shouldn't be one, because Flipside are above Mockit. 61 does not equal 59. And, even if we take that out of the question, like we take out the part where the rule set wasn't communicated, the intended rule set wasn't communicated in the rule book. And, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I'm glad that they did change their decision and they put Flipside in second, because it is only just and legal to use the rules that you issue and not say, oh, actually, we meant this. That was a mistake. Don't worry about it. We meant to say this. It's no big deal. But I think before I go too far off the track, the main thing for me is the intended rule set, which the RLCS tried to use, is absolute garbage. It is so bad. It enforced it. It made situations possible where losing games would actually benefit teams. If Flipside had lost 3-0 during the league to Mockit, instead of losing 3-2, they would have qualified in second place. But because they went 3-2, reducing Mockit's win rate below that of Northern Gaming had the best win rate in the league, and then they got cherry picked out of the tiebreak, and Flipside lost the head-to-head. But if they'd lost 3-0, Mockit would have had the best win rate in the league. They would have been cherry picked out of the 3-way tiebreak, and then Flipside would have had the head-to-head over Northern and qualified second. So they actually qualified for losing more games. Like, that completely goes against any competitive integrity. And then there was a crazy situation where, oh my dog, if they had lost 3-2 to Summit, and then they had beaten Precision Z 3-0, both Precision and Oh My Dog would have qualified, and Reunited would have got screwed. So basically, if we saw Summit 3-2 over Oh My Dog and Precision Z could have colluded to basically give Reunited a big middle finger. And I'm not saying they would do that, but it's possible, right? And for those of you who don't know why that is possible, it's pretty much because Oh My Dog's win rate would have leapfrogged Reunited. That would have pushed Reunited into 6th place tie with Precision Z, which Precision Z held the head-to-head in. There go. Reunited would have got screwed. And, just there's so many situations where losing games would actually benefit teams. And it's just, I don't even know. Like, it's a terrible rule. They're so cherry picking the best win percentage and then using head-to-head for the remainder makes no sense. It is awful. If that actually happens in an official league somewhere, shame on them, because you can actually benefit from losing games. End of rant number 2, because I've already done the initial rant on my stream. So who knows where the next rant's going to be?
I appreciate Cloud sitting there with his mouth shut the entire time. Something that
both
Quinn and Johnny fail at doing numerous times. So Cloud, thank you so much. Well. Cloud, come back. Hit him with it. Get him. Sick him, Cloud.
Okay, so with your first point,
All right, listen here, Punk. Like,
again, I love you, Johnny. I really do, because we need this. We need
Sorry,
this. We
I
need
want to know something
people.
specific from you, Clyde, before I forget. Do explain. I didn't understand what you meant with it's difficult to get
Yeah, that's what I was
consistency
gonna
over
start
league
with.
play. I didn't.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah, so
explain
what-
again. I think I
yeah.
with me.
Yeah, no problem. So what I was referring to with that is having that ahead of head-to-head. So basically, what Quinn was suggesting is instead of having head-to-head be the first thing that breaks a tie between essentially two teams, you would use the game win percentage. So theoretically, you could have a situation where Northern beats Flipside, right, in the head-to-head, but Flipside had a better game win percentage across the entire season. So Flipside would end up being the higher ranked team. Do you think that would be more realistic and more fair than having the team that actually beat the other team head to head? That was the suggestion I was making, is that while I appreciate and I understand the need for consistency, I don't know if 7 games is enough to really, or 7 matches is enough to really be the telling sign. There are teams that are going to have good days and bad days. Obviously, the teams that were more consistent theoretically are the better teams, the teams that have been more consistent across the entirety of the life of Rocket League. But with that being said, teams are going to have off days. Teams are going to get stymied by, a team like Oh My Dog that, for whatever reason, they were able to successfully beat the top teams. I think they went 8-5 against the top 3 teams, but then they struggled against the lower ranked teams. Something about the styles didn't jive. They were able to beat the other teams. So it's about.
That's not a style thing though. Oh My Dog have never beaten Flipside, not even in private scrims. They've never beaten Flipside till that one day, and somehow they won. So it's like kind of freak of nature.
So
but I don't think that proves your point at all. I think that just shows that Flipside are not consistent. Therefore, they need to be punished.
Wait, let him
losing that
finish.
game.
Johnny, let him
punished.
finish.
Johnny.
The point that I was making, though, is that with what Quinn was saying, he was suggesting that we go with game win percentage as the absolute first tiebreaker.
Yeah, I agree.
Between 2 win teams. I think I think it's difficult to do that off of 7 games. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's even wrong. I'm just saying it's difficult to do that off of. You look at anything other than Rocket League, you typically have way more matches that you can go off of, so it's a lot easier. So, for example, if we had a double round robin, so we had 14 games or 14 matches that happened in a season, I think it's a lot more telling to be consistent in that 14 match pool than a 7 match pool, because you're only playing a team one time. They only got to play Oh My Dog one time, and like you said, they've played Oh My Dog how many times outside of this one match, and they have never lost to him, right? And then this one time they lost to him. It's 1 out of 7. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is on that, but it's got to be something like 20%, right, or 10%. I mean, it's enough to where it's a significant chunk out of the amount of matches that you're playing. So my point is, while that's consistency to a degree, I don't know if you can put that ahead of a head-to-head. The example I give is if you have 2 teams that finish with the exact same record, so let's say 5-2, let's say it's Northern and Flipside, and Flipside beat Northern, but Northern had a better game percentage across the board. But who did they play? That brings in so many other factors. That means that Flipside,
teams, right?
Right, but that means that Flipside lost to somebody that Northern didn't. That's the only way that happens. Or Flipside maybe went 3-2 in all of their games instead of going 3-0, whereas Northern didn't. There's different ways that could go. So it's hard to take that and say that is definitively the best thing. Whereas head-to-head is like, well, you beat them, and that's it. Like, that's the end. So it makes it really clear-cut. I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm not saying it's the wrong way. I'm just making a point that it's very clear-cut. You beat this team on this day in this series. You got the head-to-head. You got the tie. You're winning.
What about if Northern won? Let's say that they both finish off 5-2. There's only a 2-way tie between Northern and Flipside, and every series that Northern won, they won in 3-2 overtime game 5, and both series that they lost 3-0. Meanwhile, Flipside 3-0'd 5 series and lost in overtime on 2 occasions, 3-2. But one of the series that they lost 3-2 is to Northern. Therefore, they're going to lose the head-to-head, but their win rate is like miles better. Like, Northern don't even have a 50% win rate. Flipside are like up at 80%, and because of the head-to-head rule, Northern would win, even though it's like game 5 OT. That's all that separates them. And then in the win percentage, it's like a massive Gulf of Mexico. It's like huge. And I'd say
That's fair.
Can always bring up a hypothetical situation where one looks much better than the other.
Right.
And that's why I said at the start, I'm okay with head-to-head. I'm fine with that. I don't like it, but it's okay because there is an argument for it. I don't think that's even close to the main issue here. But
no, I just wanted to clarify the point. That was the first thing you started with, so I wanted to clarify that. So that's what I was going with. I hear you. That totally could happen. And again, I'm not saying that these are perfect. And I'm not saying that these are the definitive rules and they're going to always be this way. I'm not saying any of those things. What I am saying is that there was thought put into it. It was not just arbitrarily put together. Obviously, we look at things that have happened in the past, other leagues that have been successful, sports, things like that. So, there is precedent for why the decisions were made as they were. Okay, so getting into your second point, the bigger point, as far as why the tiebreaker was chosen, or the wording of the tiebreaker and how it was meant to be implied. I do agree that the wording is less than ideal. The fact that it says teams and it says rank makes it seem as if the teams are then ranked based off of the first tiebreaker. I get that. However, that's not what it was meant to say. It was meant to say that 3 or more teams are tied by the series wins, so 5-2. At that point, with those 3 teams tied, the tiebreaker is to break that tie, the 3-way tie. It's not to break it all the way out. It's just to break the third team away from 2 teams. Now, granted, I do understand that you could read that multiple ways. You could read that as taking the top team and cherry picking them off. You could take the bottom team and booting them out, or you could take them and spread them all out separately. Like, I get that there's 3 potential interpretations of this, and I think that's one reason why we made the rule change, or not the rule change, but the decision to go with the rules as the majority of people read them, because it did come across as misleading, or at least misleading compared to what the intent of the rules were. I think if you go with what the intent of the rules are, the reason they're intended that way is, again, because head-to-head is valued so highly. Now, I'm not saying that that's perfect. I'm not saying it's the best way to do things. Again, this is me just speaking as me. But that's why. Because head-to-head was deemed as the most important, the best way to break a tie. So if that's the case, whether you agree with that or not, logically, you're going to go back to whatever you think is best. Now, if you don't think it's best, which you clearly don't, then that's fine. And that's a different topic. Yeah, I don't necessarily think that that's the best way to go about it. Fine, no problems. But that's why, because it was deemed to be the best way to break a tie. So you don't want to go down this road of like increasingly arbitrary tiebreakers and scaling down further and further and getting away from what is deemed as the best way or the clearest way to break a tie.
Could I ask you one question before we discuss like how effective the actual intended rule was? And that's based on what you just said with, and I don't know if this is used in any other league. Somebody asked me, is this rule that I'm about to explain used anywhere else? I don't know, and frankly, I don't care, because I see it as the best solution. If head-to-head is the intended rule to fall back on, why not just look at the 3 games that Northern, Mockit, and Flipside played? Like, Flipside 3-0 Northern, Northern 3-2 Mockit, Mockit 3-2 Flipside, therefore kick Northern out because they lost 3 out of Flipside. Like, was that ever considered? And if so, why was it decided against?
That, I believe, is actually number 2, which is total number of match wins in league play between the tied teams. So essentially, it's the head-to-head amongst the 3.
And they nearly got it. They nearly got it right.
I can say
they just had
that
to come up with one absolute garbage rule in first place. And second place was a good one. So
I can say that in Rocket Royale, that's what we do, is we use match wins between the 3 teams. Because at that point, it's really not so much about what you did against the rest of the teams. It's about what you did within that grouping of teams. However, I can see where there could be an argument made that, well, okay, yes, those 3 teams are the 3 teams that are tied, but it's also about how well you did across the season in total. Because if you got to this point, then theoretically you did poorly against a team that your opponents that are tied with you did not do as poorly against, and vice versa. So with that being said, you would want to see the consistency, like Quinn alluded to earlier, across the entire league. So therefore, you would want to use game win percentage across the entire league, as opposed to just looking at those 3 teams. So I can see both sides. That's the problem with a lot of these things, is it's not clear as day. And I know you have your way of seeing it, and I totally understand that. And if I had the time, I'm sure I could come up with scenarios that would combat that. And that's where the problem lies, is there's no perfect system. If there was, we'd all be using it by now. So the only thing we can do is we can take what has happened, we can learn from it, and we can make it better.
Now, I think we can all agree that the true problem lies, and Wavepunk said it very well in chat, problem is that this is a battle between what a rule implies versus what the rule was intended to say. I think we can all agree on that? Everybody?
Yeah, I think it's the intention, the implication, and then in addition to that, just the rules in general. I would like to say, though, that I think that these discussions of what the rules should be should probably have happened a lot sooner than now. No offense to anybody here, but maybe consider looking at the rules before we get to this point so we can start talking about, hey, are these good rules or not? Maybe that's something to consider before season 3 even starts. That way we can look at it and be like, hey, what if this happens? I just think that those might be good because these are good conversations. I love these conversations. Don't get me wrong.
They're important to have too.
They're absolutely important to have. I love being able to speak diplomatically and civilly about issues that are happening within the community. That's the only way to get things resolved.
No.
You've got to be careful about how you attack it, because if you do attack it, there's a chance that you'll be dismissed and your point will not be heard. And that's not what you want. You've got to make sure that you come across in a way that people are going to listen and respect what you have to say. And I've got to applaud Johnny. He's done a fantastic job of that.
Miraculously,
there have been others.
because I was not.
I know, you were too happy. Yeah.
I was pretty emotional about it. But
Which is good. I mean,
worked.
you being emotional shows that you care, and that's what we want out of this community. Every single person that is in this,
honest.
yeah, everybody in this podcast is definitely invested into the Rocket League community, whether it be a player, a caster, a community figure, content creator, or the father of it, pretty much. So everybody is invested, and we talk about these things because we definitely care. So with situations like that, and I know one that Johnny has been kind of alluding to, and things that we're curious about too, and I'd like to get Quinn's take on this personally. How do you feel about the possible collusion with the situation? I mean, there is rules that, like you said, depending on how they win, how they lose, or ways that they can hypothetically, like you said, oh, my dog talks to this team and says, hey, if we lose this, we get, in, we beat out Reunited. Quinn, how do you feel as a player like that stuff may happen? Ways to kind of be aware of it or self-aware of it? Because there is people out there that will do whatever they can to win, and that does and possibly could mean collusion.
I mean, I don't think there's any way to completely prevent collusion, just because of the fact that there's always going to be teams which, for the most part, will be more successful than others, teams which don't have a chance, and then teams who are on the bubble of like making it into RLCS play, right? And all they need is another team to knock somebody else out or to lose, perhaps. It kind of like, I can't really think of any possible system or format that would completely knock out collusion.
Well, win percentage. It would, in a win percentage tiered system, it's never advantageous to lose a game, right?
Well, I mean,
if you're just trying to better your own standing and your own chances. But just the one that I want to highlight that you can maybe respond to is the one I explained earlier. If Oh My Dog lost 3-2 to Summit, and then let's say that this didn't actually happen. They lost 3-0 to Summit, making this hypothetical not possible. But if they lost 3-2 to Summit, there would have been a situation where if Oh My Dog beat Precision Z 3-0, both Oh My Dog and Precision Z would have progressed. But if Oh My Dog beat Precision Z 3-1, which is a better score if you're looking at it from Precision Z's perspective, then Precision Z would have got knocked out and Reunited would have got in, because Oh My Dog's win rate would have been worse than Reunited's, which would have bumped Reunited up, and then Oh My Dog's head-to-head win over Precision Z. It's a bit confusing. The short version of it is, let's say that Oh My Dog are winning 2-0 in a series against Precision Z, last series of the day, mind you. At that point, do Precision Z, if they're in full knowledge of the situation, do they just go, well, let's just throw game 3, because that's more likely, like, we can guarantee that we're going to qualify right now if we just lose game 3, 3-0 down, us and Oh My Dog are both going in, instead of trying to make the reverse comeback, which is probably harder. Like winning 3 games in a row, sending Oh My Dog out is going to be a lot harder than just losing a game on purpose. Like, the fact that that was possible blows my mind, because that should not happen.
I agree with you on that point, right? But like what I'm trying to say is that no matter what, there will always be scenarios where collusion is possible, where teams can affect other teams' ability to make it into RLCS.
What about their own chances, though? If you're using
obviously
win percentage, you can't make your own chances better by deliberately losing, right?
Right, but
to make your own chances better, you have to win.
What happens when you're like IVP Season 1, where you win Qualifier 1 and you're more or less guaranteed to get in, and you can just do whatever the hell you want? At that point, your win rate doesn't even matter.
Yeah, but that's different for them, because they're already qualified, so they don't need to win. That's different. If I'm saying that it's actually, Precision are losing to Oh My Dog, and it's easier for them to qualify by deliberately losing a game.
Obviously,
right?
I don't think this is the right, completely correct system. I agree with you there. Like, you're right. at the end of the day, no team should be able to increase their chances of winning by losing.
Or guarantee their chances
Or guarantee.
of qualifying. But like
right?
in that situation,
No.
Precision Zero are guaranteed to qualify by deliberately losing one game. And they'd be stupid not to, because there's money on the line. They'd be stupid not to.
I mean, let me put it this way. As a player, I know every single other player out there will do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
You bet.
That's the end of the line. I mean, no matter what, if you have an ability to lose a game and it guarantees you in, you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it without a doubt.
So hearing that,
how do we get in? We can either A, win 3 games in a row against a team who also
Johnny, you illustrated a point.
Take your pick. Take your pick,
right?
right?
So
right?
Cloud, hearing Quinn's perspective, players are willing to do anything to win.
My perspective or Johnny's perspective?
No, I hear
it's the same thing now, man. It's the same thing.
I hear both sides.
Get mind controlled.
I do hear both sides, and I think at the end of the day, what has to happen is we have to, and myself included, we have to take a stronger role in considering all potential scenarios. That's something we certainly have done, and you can't really account for everything, but you definitely don't want to put a system in place where collusion is allowed or collusion is in a way enabled. However, I will say that there are professional sports out there where that's possible, and hell, that's even happened before. So it's definitely not something that we want to have happen. But all we can do really is we can put rules in place that if you ever are found to collude with another team or another player, you're never going to want to do it again, and it's going to guarantee that
you won't really have a chance to do it again, basically.
Yeah, you don't have a chance to do it again, and it's going to stop anybody else from ever even consider doing it. But at the same time, we also need to make sure that there are rules in place, especially with tiebreakers and rankings and things of that such, to, if not prevent it, at least heavily dissuade it. And that's where it helps to have people like yourselves that come up with these kind of off-the-wall scenarios that, sure, they could potentially happen. I mean, it was very close to potentially happening if Oh My Dog had won the exact number of games that you mentioned. Not saying that they would have done that or that was their intention by any means, but the fact that that was even possible, sure, less than ideal. I'll admit to that. And these are things that I take back to the team and we discuss, and we're already planning for the next one. So, these go right into it, and we consider all these things. So,
right.
By any means, you see issues, you see potential things that come up, let us know. That's the only way that's a good way for the community to help us to make sure that we're all putting every potential eye and every potential thought into this to make sure it's the best thing it possibly can be.
Just something that I wanted to say, because Johnny Boy kind of didn't let me say anything. There is no scenario where you're going to completely eliminate collusion. Obviously, when a team can do something counterintuitive, like lose to guarantee a spot, that's probably an unintended consequence, and obviously they're trying to fix it, right? I'm sure anybody would be upset. But with that being said, they're in that situation because of their prior performance, right? And maybe Oh My Dog or Precision Z, based on how they performed earlier in the season, that scenario would not have happened. So in all honesty, it isn't ideal. It's obviously a mistake, but we should realize that if you're trying to prevent collusion to completely, the only thing you can really do is disincentivize it by just making it not worth your time ever.
Either way, I think we can all agree that more Rocket League is probably going to be better because it gives us a larger sample size of this consistency that we all strive for. So that is going to wrap it up for the audio portion of That's the Thing Week 18. Thank you again to CloudFuel for joining us. Cloud, if you want to kind of shoot out, I know you've got the wife coming at you right now, so if you want to shoot out where these people can find you if they have any questions or if they want to talk about more stuff to make this community better, please do so, and then we're going to move on to our community rising stars.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me. The only thing I want to really promote is this Saturday, Rocket League XL. That is a collaboration of pretty much every organization and every entity in the Rocket League esports and just community ecosystem. Make sure you guys check that out. If that's okay with you, Lawler, I'll put the link to the Smash site
go right ahead.
in there. Cool.
Yep. We talked about
make sure
that
you
at
guys
the
check
beginning
that
of the
out.
stream.
Okay, perfect. That's all I wanted to shout out. It's a great initiative. It's a collective way for all of us to work together, which I think is awesome. It's the first time that's ever happened in Rocket League, so it's a cool thing, and I'm really happy to be a part of it. So definitely check that out, and thank you guys for having me.
I appreciate you coming on, Cloud.
Thank you,
Once again,
Cloud.
you guys, make sure you go check that out. Rocket League XL charity event, good cause. Everybody getting involved. Make sure you guys go play or watch, either or. But that is going to wrap us up again for the audio portion of That's the Thing. We're going to move on to the Community Rising Stars, where we kind of show off the cool things that you guys do in the community.